Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Abhineet Shukla bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. The 17th edition of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas Convention to begin in Indore from Sunday. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal says structural reforms over the past 8 years can propel India among the world's top 3 developed economies. The first global partnership on financial inclusion meeting under Indian G20 presidency set to begin in Kolkata on Monday. India will deploy its largest all-women UN peacekeeping contingent to Sudan. Thailand and Germany reinstate COVID travel bans and checks for China-bound trips and Chinese flyers. And in cricket, India won the last match of the T20 series against Sri Lanka by 91 runs. The 17th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas PBD convention will begin in Indore on Sunday. The 3-day convention will conclude on the 10th of January. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will formally inaugurate the convention on Monday, while President Draupadi Murmu will preside over the valedictory section and present the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman. The theme of the PBD convention is Diaspora, Reliable Partners for India's Progress in Amritkal. Over 3,500 diaspora members from nearly 70 different countries have registered for the convention. The PBD convention will have 3 segments. The Youth Pravasi Bharatiya Divas will be inaugurated on Sunday in collaboration with Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. There will be a discussion on the role of youth migrants in innovation and new technology in the plenary session to be chaired by Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Guest of Honour and Member of Parliament from Australia, Ms. Zanetta Mascarenhas, and Union Minister for External Affairs Dr. S. Jaishankar will also address the gathering. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal on Saturday expressed confidence over India emerging as one of the top 3 developed economies in the world due to the structural reforms taken in the last 8 years. The minister also highlighted that due to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's intervention, world economies were able to find an outcome at the G20 meeting in Bali and hoped that it would help in finding solutions to the Russia-Ukraine war. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port in Kolkata has taken up beautification of Howrah Bridge and adjoining areas in connection with the ensuing G20 meet in Kolkata from the 9th to 11th of January 2023. The city port, being the only major riverine port in India, has taken multi-pronged steps to make the city and the port cleaner, greener, more environment-friendly and commercially more attractive to the eminent international delegates. To project the city port before the investors in the port and the city, trade and commerce in a more effective way, riverfront beautification programs right from Man of War Jetty to Howrah Bridge have been taken, and quite significantly all the mooring buoys of the port are being painted on the Hooghly River side. Special illumination of the Howrah Bridge has also been done to welcome the G20 delegates, said P.L. Harnath, the chairman, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port, Kolkata.
We are talking to Mr. P.L. Harnath, Chairman, Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port, Kolkata. Your port has taken some beautification work in connection with the coming G20 meet. Could you please tell us more detail about this?
We have planned to repair some of the jetties which are under our jurisdiction, especially the Manover Jetty, the Millennium Park 3, the Indenture Memorial. So all these things, a lot of repairs have been taken up, and then cleaning is going on, and then painting is also almost complete. And number of mooring buoys in the river system also have been painted. And the approaches of the Howrah Bridge have already been repaired. The railing, the screen, the walls have been painted, and a lot of work is going on. At least the area under our jurisdiction and the Kolkata Port jurisdiction, we are trying to keep them cleaner and then beautify it, and for the visitors who are coming for the G20 summit.
The first G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, that is GPFI meeting under G20 India presidency gets underway in Kolkata on Monday. During 9 to 11 January, the GPFI member countries, guest countries and international organizations invited by India will participate in the discussions on the financial inclusion agenda under the Indian G20 presidency. The meeting starts with a symposium on unlocking the potentials of digital public infrastructure for advancing financial inclusion and productivity gains. An exhibition on digital innovations for financial inclusion has also been organized. The exhibition showcases India's achievements and efforts in advancing digital financial inclusion. It displays the financial system infrastructure, emerging technologies and interactive financial literacy awareness videos. Digital identification process flow for individuals and digital innovations in financial inclusion will be showcased. Innovations and achievements by various stakeholders such as public sector units, public sector banks, fintech companies, etc. will be on display. A Jan Bhagidari initiative with a seminar on financial literacy will be organized on January the 10th. This will be aimed at educating about 1,800 school students on banking, digital payments, insurance, investment, fraud protection and grievance redressal. The GPFI plenary sessions will be held on 10th and 11th of January. Role of digital public infrastructure for advancing financial inclusion and reducing cost of remittances would be discussed. Assessing progress made in implementation of G20 high-level principles for digital financial inclusion and advancing financing for MSMEs are also on the agenda. Youth Affairs and Sports Minister of India Anurag Singh Thakur has said the country's youth are emerging as pioneers and fast adopters of new technology. The minister was speaking at the Y20 India Curtain Raiser event at Akashvani Rang Bhavan in New Delhi on Friday. On the occasion, Mr. Thakur launched the themes, logo and website of Y20 Summit. Youth 20, that is Y20, is the official youth engagement group of G20. It provides a platform that allows youth to express their vision and ideas on the G20 priorities. Mr. Thakur also elaborated on the 5 themes of Y20. These include future of work, climate change and disaster risk reduction, peace building and reconciliation, shared future and well-being and sports. In today's Hotspot section, our Foreign Affairs editor Dr. Atul Kumar Tiwari takes a look at the major events and developments under India's G20 presidency this week.
This is All India Radio. We now present a weekly roundup of the key events of G20 this week from January 1st to 7th, 2023 under India's presidency. Script and narration is by our Foreign Affairs editor, Dr. Atul Kumar Tiwari.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
Events and developments related to G20 in India got underway on a bright note in the new year, with positive strong vibes by the global leaders to India's presidency. Preparations in the run-up to Youth 20 or the Y20, the first meeting of the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion in Kolkata, the first meeting of G20 Health Working Group in Thiruvananthapuram, and the first meeting of the Engagement Group on Science in Puducherry were among the highlights this week.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant shared the sentiments of the citizens of India with a tweet on day one of the new year. It read, G20 envisions a shared prosperous future for all and reaffirms our commitment towards promoting the universal sense of oneness during India's presidency. In an article published in a leading Indian daily, Mr. Kant wrote that in a data-driven world, India's G20 presidency is an opportune time to set a new gold standard for data, and nations should invest in the self-evaluation of data governance architecture.
What India has demonstrated to the world is that you can use digitization to leapfrog, and therefore India provides a unique opportunity through digital public goods, where the public good is the track which is owned by the government, on top of which the private sector innovates. What India has achieved in the last 6 to 7 years would have normally taken India about 60 to 70 years. But India has really accelerated the pace of digital transformation. This is a lesson for many other countries of the world, and we need to bring what we have done to the knowledge of the world, that this is possible technologically leapfrog, and that the data being owned by, instead of by big tech, we need data to be owned by individuals, and that consent is critical. And during our presidency, we'll use this opportunity to spell out the India narrative in many of these things.
India's chief G20 coordinator Harshvardhan Shringla outlined what happened in the first month of India's G20 presidency and the road ahead, with over 200 meetings planned across more than 50 cities.
As you know, our G20 presidency began on the 1st of December last year, and we have already completed 5 meetings in cities such as Udaipur, Bengaluru and Mumbai. We are now geared up to hosting 200 plus meetings in the rest of India, where we want to present the very best of our development, our scientific achievements, our culture, our cuisine, our tourism, to all of the delegates who come from the G20 countries, international organizations and invitee countries. Over the next month or two, we have scheduled meetings in different parts of our country, ranging from Pune to Thiruvananthapuram to Gandhinagar to Kolkata. Effort has been to ensure that our G20 presidency is one in which every Indian citizen can participate. Going by the vision of our Prime Minister, we intend to achieve that through Jan Bhagidari, Jan Andolan mode.
The Prime Minister spoke to King Charles III of the United Kingdom on Tuesday, 3rd January, and briefed him about India's priorities under its G20 presidency. These include propagation of digital public goods, environmental protection and climate resilience, and the potential of mission life, among others. India's G20 presidency and its significance for the global community also figured prominently in Austria as well, where the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held talks with his Austrian counterpart and also the IAEA Chairman Rafael Grossi. Addressing the Indian diaspora in Vienna, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar termed India's G20 presidency a very big deal. He said India has taken up the responsibility to host the meetings of the powerful grouping at a time when there is great economic stress on the global supply chains and strong political polarization in the world, and hence India to take up the responsibility at this time is something truly exceptional. He emphasized that India will be a voice of fairness and justice for societies and countries that would otherwise get left behind and not have somebody else to speak for them. In addition, G20 in India is going to be unique in the sense that the diversity of every religion, every culture, every local cuisine and local products will be on display before the world.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
The week saw the preparations in the run-up to the upcoming Y20 or the Youth 20 Summit. The Y20 is a leadership summit that convenes young professionals from G20 countries to develop policy solutions to current global challenges. This year's Y20 Summit will take place in Varanasi during August 16th to 20th. Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur reviewed the Y20 preparations by Assam government at the Y20 inception meeting at IIT Guwahati. A curtain raiser event for the Y20 Summit was held the next day in New Delhi on 6th January. The theme, logo and the website of the Y20 Summit was unveiled by the Union Minister.
The Y20 Summit is a unique opportunity to allow the youth to provide constructive policy inputs and to utilize the platform to voice their opinions for the world audience. The U20 India Summit brings together the trustees of our future generations from across the G20 countries to deliberate, discuss and decide innovative, sustainable, actionable solutions, especially in the realm of social development. At the Y20 Summit, India will not only speak but also provide an audience to the youth from across the world to be heard in the world's largest democracy amongst those young leaders geared up with the baton to the future.
A set of young achievers took part in the panel discussion on this occasion to share their views on 5 priority areas. The focus was on how India can harness its youth population to be a superpower. The participants also discussed the personal success stories of the panelists. The Y20 delegates represent the youth from the participating member nations at the summit. They are asked to negotiate policy solutions, draft recommendations and engage with the delegates from other G20 countries. The first conference of Youth 20 was held in 2010 and India is hosting the Y20 summit for the first time. The 5 priorities of the Y20 this year are Future of Work, which includes Industry 4.0, innovation and 21st century skills, climate change and disaster risk reduction. These include making sustainability a way of life. Shared future, which incorporates youth in democracy and governance. Peace building and reconciliation entail ushering in an era of no war. Health, well-being and sports highlight the agenda for youth.
Women-led development is at the core of India's G20 deliberations. India has multiple times said that they give a very inclusive approach in this presidency.
How India will lead G20 in responding to global health emergency.
Under what conditions youth can influence leaders, other decision makers to say no to war.
For the first 8 months, there will be pre-summits on the 5 Y20 themes. In addition, a series of discussions and seminars have been organized at different universities across the country in the run-up to the Youth 20 Summit in Varanasi. India's Y20 ambassador Falit Sijaria shared his sentiments on how India looks up at the deliberations.
First part of G20 University Connect is that we reach out to universities, tie up with them and plan events. So in which we'd be having G20 lectures and not just lectures. So our format is we have lectures and post that we have breakout rooms in which the students are separated into different groups and they have group discussions over our themes and priority areas. They give forth their suggestions which are then accumulated and assembled and then they are submitted to the ministries and the engagement groups for further consideration. And in fact, a lot of those priorities that we have right now have come out from the engagements that we did last year. In fact, last year we were at the Jindal campus itself and having a discussion. And a lot of those priorities that we are assembling are then going on to these documents. Students would be part of all of these events. They'd be working as escorts to these delegations. So they would be the one in contact with all the delegations for all the engagement groups and working group, coordinating how they're coming, whatever is going on, documenting the entire process and culminating in all of these processes. And all the engagement groups would be having interns who would be working in creating documents, creating resources, making all of this public facing through writing articles, getting all of this in the domain. And finally, in all of these aspects, these different engagement groups would also be tying up with universities as knowledge partners. So we ourselves as U20 have 20 prospective knowledge partners, different universities, where the student body would be creating documents and setting up the agendas and the white papers.
Academicians like Professor Sriram Chaulia, Dean at OP Jindal University, outlines how the agenda is going to shape up the global future.
We say that it's India's time to lead and definitely it's a lot of emphasis on our leadership, but I would say it's also the youth's time to lead and through the Y20 mechanism we are now able to mobilize young people much more across the country, in schools and colleges. People are all talking about the G20. There are like mock G20 competitions being conducted. Earlier we only had model United Nations events, but now there are model G20 events also being conducted. So I think the spirit of G20 has come in and we are really showing how India as a society is fully endowed in this idea of taking the G20 forward. We have really taken ownership of this responsibility and are going forward, and all of the young people here believe in this.
Puducherry will be hosting the first engagement meeting on science on 31st January. Lieutenant Governor of Puducherry, Dr. Tamil Sai Sundarajan, released posters and stickers on G20 logo at a function in Puducherry on 4th January. She lauded the move to host G20 meetings across the country. Chief Minister of Puducherry, N. Rangasamy, switched on G20 LED logo on this occasion.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
India's G20 Sherpa posted on Twitter that a new working group on disaster risk reduction has been established under India's G20 presidency. It aims to boost collective work, multidisciplinary research and exchange of best practices on climate risk reduction among G20 nations. He also recalled that earlier the historic city of Udaipur hosted the first G20 Sherpa meeting where more than 40 Sherpas discussed some of the world's most pressing issues, and through cultural performances, art exhibition and excursions, G20 delegates experienced some unique Indian moments. The list of leading lights from all over the world visiting India grows up as the nation celebrates its G20 presidency. After Google CEO Sundar Pichai's visit last week, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was in town on 4th January. He called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. Earlier, he addressed the Future Ready Technology Summit in Bengaluru, where he spoke about India's prowess in digital technology and the need to tell the story so that everyone else in the world can also be benefited. Mr. Nadella said India's leadership of G20 is a great moment to tell the story, and Microsoft wants to be as helpful as possible to amplify the same.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
Foreign dignitaries have been making a beeline to visit India this year. Emmanuel Bon, diplomatic advisor to the French president, met the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant on 5th January. They held extensive consultations on India's G20 presidency priorities. India representing and emerging as the voice of Global South has been one of the underlying factors of G20 presidency this year. In order to amplify it, a 2-day-long special virtual summit, the Voice of Global South, has been planned this year, where 10 sessions on key issues would be organized. India's Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra shared the details of the special virtual summit at the ministerial level at a press conference on 6th January.
We will be hosting a special virtual summit on 12th and 13th January 2023. This summit, which will be called the Voice of Global South Summit, under the theme Unity of Voice, Unity of Purpose, essentially envisages bringing together countries of the Global South and share their perspectives and priorities on a common platform across a whole range of issues. More than 120 countries are being invited for this Voice of Global South Summit.
The week ended with Kolkata gearing up to host the first meeting of the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion on Monday, 9th January. One of the highlights will be a unique exhibition on India's financial inclusion. Arrangements including a cultural extravaganza await the dignitaries from across the globe in the City of Joy.
In Kolkata, we have a wonderful exhibition that highlights India's achievements in the field of financial inclusion, and it also, showcases the potential of digital public infrastructure for advancing financial inclusion. And I understand that it's going to be a very interactive exhibition that where delegates, our media people, many other visitors will learn about what we have done, what we have to offer to the world in terms of financial inclusion, which has been a very big priority of the country.
Culture is an integral part of G20 in India, and In Tune is the International Kite Festival in Ahmedabad this year during 8 to 14 January, where G20 India is the official theme. Well, that was the story this week insofar as the G20 in India is concerned.
G20 India 2023. One Earth, one family, one future.
India will deploy a platoon of women peacekeepers to UN mission in Sudan. This will be India's largest single unit of women peacekeepers in a UN mission since it deployed the first ever all-women contingent in Liberia in 2007, stated the permanent mission of India to the UN. The Indian contingent, comprising 2 officers and 25 other ranks, will form part of an engagement platoon and specialize in community outreach, though they will be performing extensive security-related tasks as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed pride that Indian Army has deployed its largest contingent of women peacekeepers in United Nations Interim Security Force for Abia, UNISFA in Sudan. In a tweet, Mr. Modi said, India has a tradition of active participation in UN peacekeeping missions. He said that the participation of India's Nari Shakti is even more gladdening. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. According to the National Transport Minister of Thailand, the country will reintroduce COVID-19 entry requirements for foreigners flying into the country from Monday, as the Southeast Asian nation prepares for an expected wave of tourists from China. Adults must show proof of at least 2 vaccinations or recovery from the virus since July, stated the comments from Saksayam Chitchop published on the minister's political party's website. Unvaccinated visitors will need a medical report justifying their lack of inoculations, while passengers transiting to other destinations are exempt as per the statement of the Civil Aviation Authority of Thailand. These rules will be temporarily applicable until January 31st. Additionally, visitors from countries that require COVID tests for arrivals from Thailand must have health insurance during their stay, the statement said. Among the nations that recently reimposed COVID entry rules, India this month began mandatory COVID-19 tests for flyers from China, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, Singapore and Thailand. The reintroduction of entry requirements aimed at stemming the spread of COVID-19 comes as China dismantles its zero-COVID policy and reopens to the world, also scrapping quarantine for arrivals from January 8th. Thailand expects 3 lakh Chinese visitors in the first quarter of this year, after it reached a target of 10 million foreign arrivals last year in a better-than-expected recovery of its vital tourism sector. Germany on Saturday discouraged non-essential travels to China, the world's most populous nation, which is struggling with a surge in COVID cases after relaxing strict virus restrictions. The German Foreign Ministry tweeted, "We currently discourage non-essential trips to China. The reason is a peak in COVID infections and an overwhelmed health system." The longest river cruise from River Ganga to Brahmaputra is all set to embark on its maiden journey from January 13th. The Ganga Vilas cruise carrying Swiss, Australian and German tourists reached Ghazipur district in Uttar Pradesh on Saturday. Tourists will stay here overnight and visit the famous places in Ghazipur, including the mausoleum of Lord Cornwallis. The luxury cruise had its first stoppage at Balia in Uttar Pradesh on Friday. It will reach Varanasi on Sunday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will virtually flag off the cruise Ganga Vilas from Varanasi on the 13th of January 2023 for its journey towards Dibrugarh. Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh Yogi Adityanath and Union Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways Sarbananda Sonowal will be present on the occasion. The cruise, since its departure, will arrive in Patna on its 8th day after stopping in Buxar, Ramnagar and Ghazipur. It will arrive in Kolkata on the 20th day, passing through Farakka and Murshidabad. On the 21st day, it will cross into Dhaka, Bangladesh, where it will have a fortnight stay. The cruise will return to India via Guwahati and then via Shivsagar it will be back to Dibrugarh for the final leg of the journey. During the course of its journey, the luxury cruise will cover 3,200 kilometers in 50 days. It will pass through 50 different locations, including heritage sites, national parks and sanctuaries like the Sundarbans Delta and Kaziranga National Park. The trip will cross through 27 major river systems in India and Bangladesh. In Iran, two men named Mohammad Mehdi Karami and Sayyid Mohammad Hosseini have been hanged in Iran for allegedly killing a member of the military during nationwide protests. They were found guilty of corruption on earth over their alleged involvement in the death of a paramilitary officer. The trials have been described as sham by human rights groups. Even the family members of these men were not permitted to meet before they were punished. Prosecutors claimed paramilitary officer Ruhollah Ajamiya was stripped naked and killed by a group of mourners paying their respects to a recently killed protester. Protests against Iran's clerical establishment erupted in September following the death in the custody of a woman who was detained by morality police for allegedly wearing her hijab or headscarf improperly. At least 516 protesters have been killed so far, including 70 children, and 19,262 others arrested, according to the foreign-based human rights activist news agency, or HRANA. It has also reported the deaths of 68 security personnel. Arshdeep Singh made a strong comeback to take 3 wickets after Suryakumar Yadav dazzled with his third T20I century as India thrashed Sri Lanka by 91 runs in the series decider in Rajkot. Chasing a target of 229, Sri Lanka was skittled out for 137 in 16.4 overs as India won the 3-match series 2-1. Earlier, Suryakumar Yadav slammed an unbeaten century to power India to a mammoth total of 228 for 5 against Sri Lanka in the third and final T20 international in Rajkot. A quick look at the headlines once again. The 17th edition of Pravasi Bharatiya Divas convention to begin in Indore from Sunday. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal says structural reforms over the past 8 years can propel India among world's top 3 developed economies. The first global partnership on financial inclusion meeting under Indian G20 presidency set to begin in Kolkata on Monday. India will deploy its largest all-women UN peacekeeping contingent to Sudan. Thailand and Germany reinstate COVID travel bans and checks for China-bound trips and Chinese flyers. And in cricket, India set a target of 229 runs against Sri Lanka and later won the series 2-1 of the final T20 match at Rajkot. And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Slovenia. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.